I never expected my ordinary evening to turn into something straight out of a dramatic television episode tonight. The rain was falling softly outside my apartment window while I quietly prepared a simple dinner alone. Life had been routine for years, nothing exciting, nothing unusual, just peaceful silence filling every corner. But suddenly someone knocked on my door with urgency that immediately made my heart beat faster. At first I thought it was the neighbor or maybe a delivery mistake. Yet something about that knock felt strange, almost desperate, almost familiar somehow. When I opened the door, the last person I ever expected stood there soaked from rain. She looked at me silently, eyes tired, but unmistakably the same girl from my childhood memories. My childhood friend, the one who became a famous television star known across the entire country. And before I could even ask why she came, she whispered softly that she needed help. For a moment I honestly believed I was imagining things or dreaming after a long day. Because people like her usually appear on giant billboards, red carpets, and television interviews everywhere. Not standing in front of my small apartment building carrying only one suitcase quietly. Her hair was messy, her makeup completely gone, and her eyes looked exhausted and emotional. She stepped inside slowly as if escaping something chasing her from the outside world. I closed the door behind her while my mind struggled to understand what was happening. The same girl who once shared lunch with me during elementary school playground breaks. The same girl who used to laugh loudly whenever I failed at basketball games. Now she stood in my living room like someone running away from her entire life. And the silence between us suddenly felt heavier than the storm outside tonight. She looked around my small apartment carefully, almost studying every little detail silently. The old couch, the tiny kitchen table, and the stack of books beside my laptop. For someone used to luxury mansions, this place must have seemed unbelievably simple. But strangely, she smiled softly like this tiny apartment felt safe somehow. I finally asked the question burning inside my mind since she walked through that door. Why would a successful television star suddenly appear at my forgotten apartment after all these years? She sat down slowly on the couch and placed her suitcase quietly beside her feet. Then she looked at me with eyes filled with emotions I could not easily understand. Fame, stress, loneliness, regret, and something deeper hiding quietly behind her smile. And then she said something that honestly shocked me more than her sudden appearance tonight. She told me she had left everything behind earlier that morning without warning anyone. Her manager, her production team, the directors, the interviews, the cameras, everything suddenly abandoned. The entire glamorous world that millions of people dream about becoming part of someday. I stared at her trying to figure out if this was some kind of strange joke. But her tired voice carried a seriousness that made it impossible to doubt. She said fame had slowly turned into a prison she could never escape peacefully. Every day cameras followed her, every decision judged by strangers online constantly. Every smile had to look perfect, every word had to sound flawless publicly. But inside she felt more alone than she ever felt during childhood years. And somehow she believed my small apartment might be the only place left for peace. Hearing that confession made me remember the days when life was incredibly simple. Back when we were just two kids running through dusty playgrounds without worries. Back when the biggest problem in our world was homework or losing a soccer match. She used to dream about becoming an actress even when we were very young. I remember telling her she would probably become famous one day on television. And she laughed confidently, saying she would never forget the people who supported her. Years passed quickly after graduation and our paths slowly drifted far apart. She entered the entertainment world while I stayed here living an ordinary quiet life. Sometimes I saw her interviews online but never imagined meeting her again personally. Yet somehow tonight she returned like a story circle finally completing itself unexpectedly. She explained that fame gave her success but slowly took away something more important. Real conversations without cameras, real friendships without hidden intentions behind polite smiles. People around her always wanted something from the celebrity version of her life. Money, connections, publicity, opportunities, everything except honest friendship and simple understanding. Even in crowded award ceremonies, she often felt completely invisible emotionally inside. Thousands of fans adored her public image, but very few truly knew her real self. She missed ordinary moments like walking outside without reporters chasing every movement. She missed laughing naturally without worrying how it would look on tomorrow's headlines. Most importantly, she missed the simple trust that existed during our childhood friendship. And somehow she believed that trust might still exist between us tonight. I listened quietly while the rain continued tapping softly against my apartment windows. Her words carried the weight of someone who had been holding emotions for years. The glamorous celebrity life suddenly sounded far more exhausting than people imagine from outside. Millions of followers online, but almost nobody she could honestly talk to freely. She admitted that earlier today something inside her finally reached a breaking point. Another exhausting interview where reporters asked the same shallow questions repeatedly. Another smiling performance pretending life was perfect while feeling completely lost internally. So she walked out of the studio building without warning anyone or saying goodbye. And somehow her mind remembered the one place where life once felt honest. The apartment of her childhood friend who never cared about fame or popularity. I told her my apartment was small and my life extremely ordinary compared to hers. No luxurious bedrooms, no expensive furniture, just a quiet place above a grocery store. But she smiled gently and said that was exactly why she wanted to stay here. For the first time in years, she wanted to experience normal life again. Cooking simple meals, watching movies quietly, talking without microphones, recording every sentence. She asked if she could stay here for a while until she figured things out. Honestly, I had no idea how long the while actually meant in her situation. But looking at her tired face made it impossible to refuse that request. So I nodded slowly and told her she could stay as long as needed. And somehow my ordinary apartment suddenly felt like the center of an unbelievable story. Later that night we sat together eating the simplest dinner I could quickly prepare. Just noodles, eggs, and tea, nothing remotely close to celebrity restaurant standards. But she laughed happily, saying it tasted better than expensive meals served during film shoots. For the first time since arriving, she looked relaxed instead of emotionally overwhelmed. We talked about old memories, childhood teachers, silly arguments, and playground adventures. It felt strangely comforting, like time had briefly traveled backward many years tonight. Yet occasionally her phone vibrated constantly with calls from worried managers and reporters. She ignored every notification, silently placing the phone face down on the table. For tonight she just wanted to be the same girl I once knew. Not the famous actress millions recognized across television screens everywhere. As hours passed, the storm outside slowly faded, leaving the city calm and quiet. She stood near the window watching distant lights flicker across dark buildings silently. Then she asked something that made me realize how serious her decision really was. She wondered if people could still live happy lives without chasing endless fame. If ordinary routines might bring more peace than glamorous careers ever offered. I told her happiness probably looks different for every person in this complicated world. Some people chase success while others simply chase calm evenings without pressure. But the most important thing is choosing the life that allows you to breathe freely. She nodded thoughtfully, like those words answered questions she carried for years. And I realized tonight might become the beginning of a completely new chapter. The following morning, sunlight entered the apartment like nothing unusual had happened yesterday. But reality quickly returned when news notifications flooded every television channel online. Breaking headlines announced that the country's most beloved television star disappeared suddenly. Fans speculated wildly while journalists searched everywhere for clues about her location. Meanwhile, she sat quietly on my couch drinking coffee, wearing my oversized hoodie comfortably. The contrast between those dramatic headlines and this peaceful moment felt almost surreal. She looked at the television screen showing reporters discussing her mysterious disappearance. Then she turned it off calmly, like shutting down the noise of her past life. For now she simply wanted to exist as a normal person again. Not a celebrity constantly trapped inside other people's expectations and opinions. Days slowly passed and my small apartment began feeling different than before. We cooked meals together, watched random movies, and even laughed at terrible comedy shows. Sometimes neighbors passed by without realizing a famous star lived quietly upstairs. And strangely, she seemed happier each day living inside this simple, peaceful routine. Of course, the outside world continued searching endlessly for her dramatic return. But inside these walls she rediscovered something fame had stolen long ago. The freedom to wake up without schedules controlling every minute of her day. The freedom to speak honestly without worrying how headlines might twist her words. And perhaps most importantly, the freedom to reconnect with someone who knew her before fame. A friend who only remembered the girl behind the glamorous television persona. One evening she thanked me sincerely for opening my door that rainy night unexpectedly. She admitted that knocking on my apartment door was the scariest decision she made. Because she had no idea if I would welcome her or turn her away politely. But she said that moment reminded her why childhood friendships are incredibly special. They exist before money, before careers, before public images complicate everything in adulthood. I told her honestly that I never expected life to bring her back here. Yet somehow it felt like our friendship simply paused instead of ending completely. Sometimes people travel far chasing dreams before remembering where they truly belong. And maybe that journey was necessary for her to understand what matters most. The quiet apartment where she could finally breathe without pretending to be someone else. So if you're watching this story right now, maybe there's something worth remembering tonight. Success and fame might look perfect from the outside, but reality can feel very different. Sometimes the people living the most glamorous lives secretly crave ordinary, peaceful moments. And sometimes the simplest places become safe havens during life's most confusing chapters. My childhood friend arrived unexpectedly and changed the meaning of normal life forever. Now I'm curious what you would do if someone famous knocked on your door like that. Would you help them escape the world watching their every move constantly? Or would you send them back to the spotlight everyone believes they belong in? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and share it.